y'all, and welcome to today's video. I have a stack of palettes here in front of me. I have been testing and trying these. I am ready to review them, give you my thoughts, tell you the pros, tell you the cons. Let's jump into it. Alright y'all, getting started, I think I have about 10 palettes here to talk about. All of these palettes are palettes that I have been testing, trying over the past couple of weeks. Some of these I think even longer than that. And I've used all the shades. I've really worked with these palettes. I have my full thoughts together, and I'm just gonna kind of tell you my overall opinion on these, the pros, the cons, what I love, what I don't love, all of that, like follow-up reviews. I really love testing and trying new palettes. I love doing tutorials, but I think it's always important to follow up after I've really got my full thoughts together. So we're going to talk about these palettes. If you want to see close-up swatches, tutorials, definitely check out my channel. I have tons of videos. I have videos on all of these palettes, I believe. So let's just talk about them. I have a lot to say. We'll start with Clionadh Deep Sea Treasures palette. So this palette is a collection of Clionadh's multi-chromes. So I love this cover, and I love to see a palette from Clionadh. I love shopping their singles. They have so many, and I've bought so many Clionadh single shadows. They make beautiful multi-chromes, beautiful formulas, but I think there's something really nice about being able to get like a curated color story if singles feel overwhelming to you. And I do find myself reaching for my palettes over my single shadows. That's just my personal preference. I usually choose to work with an eyeshadow palette. So I really like that they kind of curated this color story. We can pop the pans out and move them around, but the shadows inside, beautiful. So beautiful. I think they did good with the size of this palette. If you can see, it fits in my hand like this. I think 8 multi-chrome shadows is not too overwhelming, and I think these are really cute for the theme of the palette as well. So we do have some light multi-chromes, you can see right here. We have some darker ones over here. I think they gave us a nice variety in tones in this palette as well. Let me see, I'll just kind of show you the shifts in the mirror. There you go. Again, you can watch my video on this palette because I really tried to like show you the shifts and things and different lighting. But overall, this quality is consistent with what I know and expect from Clionadh. Same quality as their typical single multi-chrome shadows like this. Really beautiful collection of colors. Super duper happy with this one. I don't think there are really any cons to this. I have enjoyed every single shade. I like this mirror, and again, I'm really happy to see them doing these color stories for us with bundles of their shadows rather than just like shopping the singles. I enjoy this a lot. Okay, let's talk about the Moula palette from Martine Cosmetics. This is such a cute like theming with it looking like a credit card and being money themed. This palette from Martine is slimmer in packaging than their previous palettes, which I really enjoy. I would love to see them keep on with this more slim packaging. So opening this up, we do have a color story that is very trendy right now. This kind of neutrally orangey, yellowy, green type of color story. We're seeing a lot of brands do palettes, not the exact same color story, but the same type of vibe, you know? So I did a video with this palette and I created like a more dramatic look, but what I've really been doing with this palette is creating very light, easy, effortless types of looks that I'm taking like 5 minutes to do. I've been taking like this matte all in the crease, throw on a pretty shimmer, use a darker color as liner, and out the door. I think the shadows from here are very consistent for Martine Cosmetics. So Martine Cosmetics makes mattes that are buildable and easy to blend. They make shimmers that are smooth and pretty, and they usually throw in some really sparkly shimmers as well. So we do have a couple of like duochrome type shades in this palette. This one right here, Michelle. This one down here, Regina. But overall, we have that nice buildable matte formula from Martine with those really pretty smooth shimmers that I think a lot of people really enjoy. I have liked this one. I think the color story is fun. I think we have a nice mix of neutrals and more poppy colors. I think it's a nice mix of mattes and shimmers. I really like the inclusion of this more like green yellow shade right here. I think that's super fun with this pop of orange. I have enjoyed this one a lot, and I've been grabbing it more, like I said, for kind of muted, toned down, quick and easy eye looks. I really like the formula of Martine Cosmetics. Like I said, you do have the two duochromes in here, but if you're used to, you know, the Clionadh multi-chromes where you're getting intensity, you're getting a lot of shift, you're getting a lot of sparkle, you're not going to get that with Martine, but you are going to be able to create really beautiful looks and have some really nice formulas. Okay, in that same color family, we have the Nomad, what is this one called? Okavango Safari palette. Sorry, I had to double check. I always just want to call it Safari, but it's not just Safari. So first of all, something I love about this palette is the packaging. I know that's a small thing, but packaging to me is part of the experience of getting ready. It doesn't affect the look once the look is done, but it's just part of the process that I enjoy. And I love this kind of leopard print packaging. It's got this like soft touch to it, but opening it up, we do have that green kind of neutral color story that I was saying is a theme right now in makeup. This one, I really like the tones they chose in here. I did watch some other people review this palette, and I saw other people saying that their shimmers were kind of hard pressed, hard to pick up and apply. I did not have any issues. I created, I think, 2 looks with this palette here on my channel. I had a great experience with all of the shadows. I really like the layout of this palette. Let's talk about that because that is so appealing to me. We have these kind of warm neutrals on this top row. Then we have our more like muted green tones in the middle. And then on the bottom, we have more neutral to cool leaning browns. Also, very pleasing to me is that we have mattes, non-mattes. I won't say shimmers because like some of these are more intense than shimmers. Some of these are shimmers. So like mattes, non-mattes, mattes, non-mattes, mattes. That's just pleasing to me. I really like this orangey copper shade up here. I love that we have this green shade that's almost neutral if you want to pair it with browns, more green if you want to pair it with greens. Really pretty. The only downside to this palette for me is that I would have liked a light shade just for me to throw on my inner corner or something like that. I used shades just from this palette in my looks that I shared with y'all, but on my own I have pulled in my face highlighter for the inner corner shade because I just feel like we need a lighter shade. And this color right here, while you can get a small brush and just try to pick up the light shade, it is a little more difficult to do that. So overall, I really enjoy this palette. I've had a great experience with it and I really like the mattes. Okay, the last palette in that same kind of color story that we had from Martine and Nomad, I bought the Natasha Denona Yucca palette, however you want to say it. It honestly doesn't matter. I'm going to share my thoughts on this palette. First of all, I love Natasha Denona. I've been buying her palettes for so long. She makes some of my favorite formulas, especially in these cream to powder formulas. I love those on their own or for layering. I think they're so beautiful, and I really feel like we get good formulas in here from Natasha. I love that we have this kind of neon yellowy green shade up here. I love that we have this orangey kind of burnt orange over here with these teals and these greens. I also really like that we have some of Natasha's shimmers like this formula right here that are very smooth and beautiful and shimmery, but then we have some of her super sparkly shimmers like right here in this kind of silvery shade. This shade I think really pretty to the palette. And then we also have her like duochrome formula right up here where it's like very intensely sparkly. It has some shift to it. really, really beautiful. I think Natasha Denona did a great job with this palette, and this is a color story that I kind of gravitate towards. I like this type of color story. I've seen some people say that they feel like this is a fall palette. I like to be inspired by the seasons, but I definitely don't plan my makeup looks around the season. I look at this and I can see summer nights. I don't just see fall time. Like, this shade's so beautiful. Even just these 3 shades right here to create a look. So fun and bright and trendy, and I've had a great experience. I also really like this almost like tie-dye packaging. I'm into it. Natasha Denona really made me happy with that. When it goes light to dark, I'm very happy with my purchase. Okay, I bought this palette, the Under the Sea palette from Alijah Storm Cosmetics. So this is an indie brand that I had never tried before. When I went on their site, I actually saw that they had like a Hocus Pocus themed palette too. It had the Sanderson sisters on it, and I was like, stay strong, get the palette you came for, Heather. So I just bought this one, the Under the Sea palette. Again, this is an indie brand that is new to me. And I did do a video with this palette. I swatched everything. And this palette I think is nice. It was not very expensive for the amount of shades you got. What is it, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 25 shades, and I think I paid $35 for this palette. I can't remember. Definitely check out the video if you're interested. But playing with this palette more, I still feel basically the way I did when I first tried this palette. The shimmers, like the duochromes and the shimmers, they're very pretty, but if you have a lot of duochromes and things in your collection, these may not be new to you. I did feel like a lot of these I already had in maybe some other brands. I don't know if the shimmers are super unique, but if you don't have mini duochromes, you look at the swatches, you don't feel like you have shades like this one could definitely be worth checking out, because it does have some of those really pretty like squishy formula duochromes. I think the color story is very pretty. I like the kind of green blue theme with the purples and the reds pulled in. I really feel like it fits that Little Mermaid vibe. The mattes, not my favorite. I was definitely able to build up the black when I wanted to. I just had to layer it a bit more than I would prefer. The other mattes the same way. I just really had to kind of like pack them on to get color intensity, which sometimes, you know, a sheer wash of color is fine if that's what you're going for, especially in a shade like this, maybe a warm brown shade. But usually with a green, a blue, I want pigment, not just a sheer wash that doesn't really look intentional. So I definitely had to build these mattes up a bit more than I would have preferred. But overall, like, I would be open to buying from this brand again, trying something else they have if they put out like a theme and a color story that's intriguing to me. I know like this shade right here really has a pretty shift and shine to it. This shade as well. I would just say if you have a large makeup collection, definitely watch my video, look at the swatches, see if maybe you're missing some of these shades in your collection. But I do think this is pretty, and it's a really cute theming. I have yet to see the movie and I'm so upset about it. Okay, let's talk about the Melt Electrip palette. I bought this palette from Melt and I was excited to see them coming out with another like fun color story. They've been turning some of their stacks into palettes. The last one, I think, was it Rust? I can't remember. I decided to pass on that one. It just didn't call to me a lot. So I was excited when Melt showed this palette. I was like, yes, okay, we have some color, we have some shimmers, and I like this palette. I really do. I had a great experience. I did 2 looks with this palette for y'all. I've been playing with it also off camera, and I like this palette. But I feel like Melt is falling behind a little bit when it comes to shadows. it's hard to explain because I do like this palette and I don't want it to come across like I don't like it, because I really do. Happy with my purchase, definitely don't regret it at all, but I feel like Melt used to really set the trends. They were coming out with these like really intense, easy to blend mattes at the time. They were coming out with the unique color stories. They were doing these really cool shimmers, and I feel like they've just kind of stuck with what they've been doing and they haven't elevated much. And I really hope like later this year, maybe even for holiday or Halloween or something, we see like something a little more exciting for Melt. While their shimmers are very pretty, I just think they could do more. Like this blue is beautiful, but I would love to see Melt just push it just a little bit more. Everything doesn't have to be a duochrome. Everything doesn't have to be a multi-chrome. Like, I get that. I find value in just really pretty shimmer shades as well, but I would like for them to maybe play around and see if they can up that sparkle factor, or maybe take a shimmer like this and put in like a little bit of shimmer to the shadow that's different than the base color, just something a little more. With all of that being said though, I did like the looks. When I've played with this palette, I've had a good time. I've kind of mixed and matched this one with other ones and I enjoy it. I do. I think this is pretty. I don't regret my purchase, but I am like hoping that Melt will kind of just like wow me in the future. Okay, this is not a new palette, but it is new to me. This is Not a Box of Chocolates from ColourPop. I know so many people say this is their favorite neutral palette, their favorite palette from ColourPop, and I understand why. You get a lot of brown shades in here. The formula in here, so nice. I'm pretty sure I used this in a Get Ready With Me or something like that. All of the mattes, very easy to blend. We have some really pretty shimmers in here. We have light shades, we have dark shades. We have this tone down here that's like a brown, almost leaning purple, that I think gives some versatility to the palette. We have some more bronzy tones. Really pretty. It is a monochromatic brown palette, but if you were looking for some shades like this, I think you'll really like it. This is the Really Good Great formula from ColourPop. Every shade I've used has worked really well, really pretty, and if you maybe have some shades like that Cleona palette with the multi-chromes and you want to pair your vibrant crazy multi-chromes with some brown mattes, some neutrals to kind of tone it down, maybe make it to where like the look's not as intense, I think this is a fun like companion palette in that sense. Of course you can create looks with this all on its own, but I think if you just use some of these matte browns and then go in with your fun multi-chromes, this is a winner for that. Okay, let's talk about Simply Posh Citrus Punch. I have really been enjoying Simply Posh. I think they put out fun color stories with cute themes, and I was really excited to see this palette. So we have a nice mirror in here. We have this cute citrusy theme, and I really like that all of their pans are magnetic, so you can pop these shadows out. That's not something I do. I don't usually rearrange my palettes. I would rather just like pull 2 or 3 palettes out and create a look like that rather than just pop my shadows out. But I do think that's a really nice touch. I know it's more expensive to do magnetic pans, and it does give some versatility. If you want to move the shadows around, you can. Like, you do have that option. And with this palette, I just think this color story was really well thought out, and it works really beautifully together, because sometimes we see makeup brands pick a theme and the color story they create will definitely be great for the theme or a collaboration or whatever it is, but when you go to use the shadows, it's hard to create a look with those colors. Like, the colors fit the theme, but the colors don't work for a good cohesive makeup look. Sometimes we see that. But this, I feel like they picked a theme and they made a beautiful palette that works so well together. I love that we have these greens. I love that we have yellows. We have these kind of peachy pink shades. We have some oranges, we have pinks, and then we have pinky berry tones. We have light shades, we have dark shades, we have a lot of mid-tone shades. We have, what is this, 12 mattes, and then we have these 6 like duochrome shades or sparkly shades. Some of these are more duochrome, some of these are more sparkly. The only con with this palette is some of the shimmers, I do have to really swirl my brush in there to pick them up. I don't use my fingers for my shadows. I just don't like to do that. I don't like to put my fingers all in my shadows after I've swatched them. So I can't really speak to that, but for me, sometimes I do just have to take my brush and swirl a little extra to get the shimmer off. It doesn't bother me, but it is something that I notice the more and more I've played with it. So I did want to let you know that they work beautifully. That's not an issue for me. I just have to swirl a little bit more. But the pigment of all of these, beautiful. They blend beautifully. They look pretty. I really enjoyed this one. Simply Posh, they're definitely a brand that I get excited about. When they're releasing something new, I'm always interested to see what it is. Okay, I've got 2 big palettes to talk about, and the Juvia's Place Culture 2 palette. I bought this when it launched from the Juvia's Place site, and I created, I'm trying to think of how many looks I did here on my channel, 3 or 4, I can't remember. I feel now, after playing with this palette more, I feel the same way I did about it in my video. Yes, it's a big palette. Listen, I knew it was a big palette when I bought it, so I don't feel like it's beneficial to be like, oh, I wish it were a little bit smaller, because like this is what it was presented to be. This is what I bought. I was really attracted to this color story. I really like that we had all these green shades. I like the kind of chaotic energy that this palette had. Like something about this yellow, blue, this kind of like orangey red all next to each other, I felt very inspired by. Looking at these shadows, I just think it was really pretty. But this is not what I expected from Juvia's Place in terms of quality. The quality is fine in the mattes, but I definitely had to layer and build them up more than I'm used to from Juvia's Place. Usually with Juvia's Place, I get pigment from my mattes right away, and then I'm able to blend and work with the shadow. These, I definitely had to put a layer of the shadow down, pack more on, and then blend, and then sometimes pack a little more on. I know, like, I tried, like, I just tried with these, and some of the mattes just, they weren't bad. I just expect more from Juvia's Place. I think the shimmers and the duochromes in here are really pretty. The best formula in here is this Josh shade right up here. It is a duochrome that shifts really strongly. It looks wet. It is so smooth, not only when you swatch it, but when you apply it to the eyes too. But there's no other shadow in this palette with this formula right here. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. If I had to, I would say maybe this is a more expensive formula. It's just so wet and smooth and shifty and beautiful. I would have loved to have seen this formula more in this palette. So overall, I don't think this is a bad palette. I just know Juvia's Place does better palettes. So I still like this. I think it's a good palette. It's just not a palette like that I want to reach for. I like that pigment, and I don't like having to build as much as I did with these mattes. And like some of them I wasn't even able to build up as intense as I want, but overall, you know, it's good, but I expected more. Last but not least, another big palette, my love. What I'm wearing today is the Smoky Glam palette from Bella Beauty Bar. This palette, this is big, okay? This looks excessive, and if you're like, Heather, that's too big, then it's too big for you. No problem, no problem. This, the quality is so good. The quality is so good. This is a palette that I have wanted to reach for so many times. It's one that I've had to tell myself, no, you can't use that. You have other palettes to test. You know, like that's a good palette. I have used every single shade in this palette. It's just beautiful. I mean, look at this that I have on today. Like, I just feel like it's so easy to use this palette. I love how we kind of have these like cool toned grays. We have these grays that are not green, but they have this like olivey undertone to them, really pretty. We have deep dark shades, we have light shades, we have these mauvey like purpley tones, we have these pinky tones, we have duochromes, we have mattes with sparkle, we have beautiful shimmers. Just, this is a large palette. This is a large palette, but man, I have loved every single shadow inside of here. I have used them all on the eyes. I've been testing this palette, I think, for like a month and a half now. Like, it took me a while because it's big. Like, you see, I've reviewed several large palettes now. That's why it's taken me a little longer to follow up this video, because I really like to make sure I'm testing the shadows on the eyes. I'm playing with them. I'm seeing how they layer. I'm seeing how they're used best. So sometimes it just takes me a while to get these videos together because I really want to play with them. But I hope you enjoyed today's video. I had fun. I could talk about palettes all day long, so I had a great time with this one. Let me quickly tell you, I told you what's on my eyes. I'm wearing my Lilly Lashes Mykonos Lite. I'm still testing the Give Pick It Up Contour Bronzer Duo, so I'm using that. I'm wearing my Fenty Beauty Matchstick and Strawberry Pop on the lips. My highlighter is my Oracle Chrome palette from Bella Beauty Bar, and my lip is the ColourPop Ultra Glossy Lip in the shade Ditto. Yeah, Ditto. I will put everything down below in the description box. I'll put all these palettes down in the description box. Again, I have videos on all of these if you want to see swatches, close-up tutorials. Some of these were gifted, some of these were purchased myself. I popped up codes on the screen. If I had codes with the brand, I'll put everything down in the description box. Definitely check it out. But thank you so much for watching. If you're on a low buy or a no buy, let me know. What palettes have you been pulling from your stash? What have you been using a lot? If you've tried any of these palettes, let me know what you think. I always love hearing from y'all. I hope you're having an amazing day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow in a new video. Bye!